I asked when the wedding is, and my late husband's daughter said, "We got married yesterday." Other people in line were staring now. The clerk's voice dropped to that practice government whisper used for delivering bad news to crazy people. "Ma'am, I can't discuss the details of another party's private legal matters. If you believe there's been an error, you'll need to consult with an attorney." I gathered my papers with trembling hands. 40 years of marriage, reduced to another party's private legal matters. Has anyone ever made you feel invisible in your own life? Maybe at work, in your family, or when dealing with doctors who wouldn't listen. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. Have you ever been told you don't exist, by your own government? Picture walking into a courthouse where you've lived your whole life, carrying your marriage certificate, your husband's death certificate, and 43 years of shared memories. Then hearing a clerk look you straight in the eye and say, "Ma'am, you're listed here as a stranger to the estate." Stranger. To your own husband's legacy. Has anyone ever made you feel invisible in your own life? Maybe at work, in your family, or when dealing with doctors who wouldn't listen. Well, someone had rewritten Linda's marriage completely out of existence. Not through divorce papers or death, but through something far more clever and cruel. But who has the power to erase a widow from her own life story? And more importantly, why would they want to? If losing your identity overnight feels impossible, imagine discovering someone used legal paperwork to steal 40 years of love. Subscribe now, because tomorrow, these same loopholes could find you completely defenseless. Stick around, because what Linda discovered next will make you question every document you've ever signed. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I sat in the plastic chair outside the Fayette County Probate Office. My hands shook slightly as I held Robert's death certificate, still crisp from the funeral home, still smelling faintly of their cheap paper. 3 months. 3 months since I'd buried my husband of 40 years, and I was just now getting around to filing the insurance claims. Grief has a way of making simple tasks feel impossible. But our savings were running low, and the bills weren't going to pay themselves. The clerk called my name. Linda Johnson? I approached the window with my folder of documents, marriage certificate from 1981, Robert's death certificate, copies of his pension paperwork, and my driver's license. Everything neat and organized, just like Robert taught me. She barely looked up. "What can I help you with?" "I need to file for my husband's life insurance benefits." Robert Johnson. He passed in March. She typed something into her computer. Frowned. Typed again. "Ma'am, I'm showing you as a stranger to the estate." The words hit me like cold water. "Excuse me? According to our records, you have no legal standing in Robert Eugene Johnson's estate matters. Are you perhaps a distant relative?" My chest tightened. "I'm his wife. We were married 40 years. She turned her monitor slightly toward me. There, in black and white government text, was my name listed under Other Parties, instead of Surviving Spouse. "There must be some mistake," I whispered. "The system shows the surviving spouse as Claire Marie Johnson. Filed last month with proper documentation." Claire. Robert's daughter from his first marriage. The girl who'd barely spoken to us in 5 years, who'd missed Christmas dinners and birthday calls. Who'd been oddly calm at the funeral, excusing herself early to handle paperwork. "But I have our marriage certificate right here." My voice cracked as I slid the document through the window. The clerk examined it with the enthusiasm of someone checking expired coupons. "This shows you were married to the deceased, yes. But it's been superseded by more recent documentation." "More recent?" "He's been dead for 3 months." Other people in line were staring now. The clerk's voice dropped to that practice government whisper used for delivering bad news to crazy people. "Ma'am, I can't discuss the details of another party's private legal matters. If you believe there's been an error, you'll need to consult with an attorney." I gathered my papers with trembling hands. 40 years of marriage, reduced to another party's private legal matters. As I walked toward the exit, my phone buzzed. Claire's name appeared on the screen like some cosmic joke. I stepped outside into the Kentucky heat and answered. "Oh hey, Linda." Perfect timing. Her voice was bright, cheerful. Like nothing had changed. "Claire, I just left the courthouse. They're saying I'm not Robert's legal widow." "That you are." A pause. Then that same bright tone, "Yeah, about that. We got married yesterday." The words made no sense. "What do you mean, married?" "Dad and I. We had a ceremony in Nevada last month. Finally made it official, you know." My legs felt weak. I found a bench and sat down hard. "Claire, your father has been dead for 3 months. I know it sounds weird, but the lawyer said it was totally legal. A posthumous marriage license. Pretty cool, right?" "Cool." She thought erasing me was cool. Comment stranger, if you've ever been made to feel invisible by the system you trusted. The bench felt cold despite the summer heat. Cars passed on Main Street, their occupants living normal lives where dead men don't get married and widows don't become strangers. "Claire, I need you to explain this to me slowly. You're saying you married your father after he died?" "It's not as weird as it sounds, Linda." The lawyer, his name's Marcus Webb, really expensive guy in Nashville, he explained the whole thing. Posthumous marriages are totally legal in Nevada. You just need the right paperwork. My mind raced. "What paperwork? Robert never mentioned any marriage plans with you." "Well, duh, Linda. It was supposed to be a surprise. Dad signed all the documents before he got sick. We were going to tell you after the ceremony, but then he had the heart attack and..." Her voice trailed off with fake sadness. "You're telling me Robert signed marriage papers to marry his own daughter?" "Stepdaughter, technically. And it's not like a regular marriage, obviously. It's just a legal thing for the estate. Makes everything cleaner." Cleaner. Like I was some kind of mess that needed tidying up. "Claire, show me these papers." "Already sent copies to your email. Check the one you never use, not your AOL account, the Gmail one Robert set up." I fumbled with my phone, fingers shaking as I opened the email app. There it was, a message from Claire with 3 PDF attachments. The first document made my stomach drop. Certificate of Marriage, State of Nevada, Clark County. Robert's name in neat print, Claire's name beside it. Date, March 15, 2024. March 15. 2 days before Robert died. "Claire, this says you got married on March 15th. "Yep. Beautiful ceremony. Small and private, just how Dad wanted it. Robert was in the hospital on March 15th. He couldn't even sit up without help. The lawyer handled all the logistics. Really professional operation." I scrolled down to the signatures. Robert's name was written in careful, flowing script. Too careful. Too perfect. This signature doesn't look right. "What do you mean?" Robert's handwriting was terrible. The doctor always complained about his prescriptions. But this signature looks like calligraphy. Maybe he took extra care since it was important. This lie destroyed decades of love with a single sentence. Subscribe now, learn to spot deception before it completely buries the truth. "Claire, I'm looking at the notary section. It says the ceremony took place at the Little Chapel of Hearts in Las Vegas." "That's right. Dad always said Vegas would be fun." The notary's name is Jennifer Walsh. License number 2847. She supposedly witnessed Robert signing these papers while he was dying in a Kentucky hospital bed 3 states away. For the first time, Claire's voice lost its cheerful edge. "Look, Linda, I don't know all the technical details. That's why we hired the lawyer." "We?" "I mean, that's why I hired the lawyer. To handle Dad's wishes properly." The line went dead. I sat on that bench staring at my phone, while traffic moved around me like life was still normal. One question echoed in my mind: how do you marry a dead man? What would your first move be? Call a lawyer immediately, or start digging for evidence yourself? Tell us in the comments below. That night, I spread the printed documents across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. The overhead light cast harsh shadows on the papers, making Robert's supposedly perfect signature look even more suspicious. I pulled out our old shoebox of cards, birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day notes written in Robert's actual handwriting. His real signature was a barely legible scrawl that leaned heavily to the left, like he was always in a hurry. The signature on Claire's marriage certificate leaned right. Every letter was carefully formed, like someone had been practicing. But it wasn't just the signature. The entire document felt wrong. The paper was too white, too crisp. Government forms usually came on that slightly gray paper with watermarks. This looked like it came from someone's home printer. I opened my laptop and searched for Little Chapel of Hearts Las Vegas. The website looked legitimate enough, photos of happy couples, pricing packages, testimonials. But when I clicked on their licensed officiants page, I couldn't find anyone named Jennifer Walsh. I called the chapel directly. Little Chapel of Hearts, this is Jessica speaking. Hi, I'm calling about a wedding ceremony that supposedly took place there on March 15th. Could you help me verify it happened? Sure. Do you have the couple's names? Robert Johnson and Claire Johnson. I heard typing in the background. I'm not showing any ceremony for those names on March 15th. Are you sure about the date? What about the officiant? Jennifer Walsh, notary license 2847? More typing. Then silence. Ma'am, we don't have any officiant by that name. Never have. My heart started beating faster. Could you double-check? This is really important. I've been here 6 years, and I know all our people. No Jennifer Walsh. And honestly, that license number doesn't follow Nevada's format. Ours start with different numbers. I thanked her and hung up. Then I did something I'd never done before. I Googled how to check if a notary license was real. The Nevada Secretary of State website had a notary verification tool. I typed in Jennifer Walsh's supposed license number. No active notary found matching this information. Ever spotted a fake signature? The tiny details that expose forgers might surprise you, and they could save your life. I printed out everything I could find, the chapel's real officiant list, screenshots of the Nevada Notary database, and photos of Robert's actual handwriting from our anniversary cards. Then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. I rushed to Robert's closet and pulled out the jacket he'd worn to his last doctor's appointment. In the pocket was a crumpled receipt, Lexington General Hospital, Emergency Department. Patient, Robert Johnson. Admit time, March 15, 2024, 3:47 p.m. 3:47 p.m. on March 15th. The same day he was supposedly saying, "I do," in Las Vegas. But the receipt was timestamped Kentucky time. If the Vegas ceremony happened at 2 p.m. Pacific, like the marriage certificate claimed, Robert was already connected to heart monitors 1,200 miles away. I sat back in my chair, holding that crumpled receipt like it was gold. Robert's signature leaned left. This one leaned right. Someone had practiced, but not enough. Screenshots save lives, and expose lies. What evidence would you have photographed first? Let us know below. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that perfect fake signature and heard Claire's casual voice, "We got married yesterday." By 5 a.m., I was back at the kitchen table, going through every piece of paper Robert had touched in his final weeks. Bank statements, prescription bottles, appointment cards. Anything that might have his real signature or prove where he was on March 15th. That's when I found his wallet, still in the drawer where I'd left it after the funeral. Inside was his driver's license, insurance cards, and a folded piece of paper I'd missed before. It was another hospital receipt, this one from 2 days earlier, March 13, 2024, cardiology consultation, Dr. Patricia Kim, patient reports increasing chest pain and shortness of breath. Dr. Kim. I remembered her from the hospital. A no-nonsense cardiologist who'd been trying to save Robert's life while someone in Nevada was apparently planning his fake wedding. I called the hospital as soon as they opened. Cardiology department, this is Maria. Hi, I'm Linda Johnson. My husband Robert was a patient of Dr. Kim's. He passed away in March, and I'm trying to get copies of his medical records. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Johnson. I'll need you to come in with proper identification and his death certificate. Actually, I have a quick question. Do your records show what time he was admitted on March 15th? Let me check. Robert Johnson, yes, here it is. Emergency admission at 3:47 p.m. He was in severe cardiac distress when the ambulance brought him in. Was he conscious? Could he have signed any documents that day? A pause. Mrs. Johnson, your husband was barely conscious when he arrived. We had him on oxygen immediately, and Dr. Kim ordered him sedated for his comfort. He wasn't really alert again until the morning of March 16th. My hands started shaking. So on March 15th, from about 4 p.m. onward, he couldn't have signed anything legal? Definitely not. Hospital policy requires patients to be fully alert and unmedicated for any legal document signing. Your husband was neither. One receipt just destroyed $1 million lie. Subscribe now, because learning to spot these contradictions might save everything you've worked for. I thanked Maria and hung up. Then I did the math that Claire's expensive Nashville lawyer had apparently skipped. Las Vegas is 3 hours behind Kentucky. If Robert was admitted to Lexington General at 3:47 p.m. Eastern Time, that meant it was 12:47 p.m. Pacific Time in Nevada. The marriage certificate claimed the ceremony happened at 2 p.m. Pacific, more than an hour after Robert was already fighting for his life in a Kentucky emergency room. But that still left a window. What if they'd held the ceremony earlier in the day? I called Dr. Kim's office directly. Dr. Kim's office, this is Jennifer. Hi, I'm Linda Johnson. My husband Robert was Dr. Kim's patient. I'm wondering, did he have any appointments on March 15th before his emergency admission? Let me check his schedule. Yes, he had a 10 a.m. appointment that morning. He came in complaining of severe chest pain. Dr. Kim sent him straight to the ER for immediate admission. Robert was in medical crisis from 10 a.m. onward. He couldn't have traveled anywhere, let alone to Nevada. But if Robert was dying in Kentucky, who signed that marriage license in Las Vegas? What would you do with proof this solid? Would you take it straight to the police, or keep digging for more evidence? Tell us your strategy below. I stared at my phone for 10 minutes before finding the courage to dial. Martin Reeves had worked as a county clerk in Ohio for 32 years before retiring. Robert and I had met him at a church conference 5 years ago, and he'd given us his card with a smile. Call if you ever need help with government paperwork, he'd said. I know where all the bodies are buried. Today, I hoped that was more than just a figure of speech. The phone rang twice before his familiar voice answered. Linda. I heard what happened. We need to talk. Martin, how did you? Church network. Pastor Williams called me yesterday. Said you were having trouble with Robert's estate. My throat tightened. Even our pastor knew before I'd figured it out myself. It's worse than trouble, Martin. Someone filed fake marriage papers for Robert. Made it look like he married his stepdaughter after he died. Posthumous marriage fraud. I've seen it before. That stopped me cold. You've seen this before? 3 times in my county alone, before I retired. It's getting more common. Crooks know that most people don't understand how the system works, so they exploit the gaps. What gaps? Well, think about it. When someone dies, there's usually a window of a few weeks before all the paperwork gets filed and cross-referenced. If someone has access to the right databases, they can slip fake documents into the system during that window. I grabbed a pen and started taking notes. What kind of access? County clerk offices, for starters. Marriage licenses, death certificates, property deeds. Most of it's computerized now, but the security isn't always what it should be. And if you've got an inside person, you think there's someone inside helping with this? Linda, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Have you checked the digital signatures on those Nevada documents? Digital signatures? Every electronic document filed with a government office has metadata embedded in it. Information about when it was created, who created it, what computer it came from. It's like fingerprints, but for paperwork. My heart started beating faster. How do I check that? Do you still have those PDF files Claire sent you? Yes, they're on my computer. Good. Right-click on the file and look for Properties or Document Properties. There should be a tab that shows creation dates, modification dates, and author information. I put Martin on speaker and opened my laptop. Found the marriage certificate PDF and right-clicked. I see it. Creation date: March 18, 2024. What time? 2:14 a.m. Martin was quiet for a moment. Linda, government offices don't work at 2:14 in the morning. Not unless they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. My hand started shaking again. What does that mean? It means someone created that document in the middle of the night, 3 days after the supposed ceremony date. They backdated it to make it look legitimate. How do you know all this? Because I spent 30 years watching people try to cheat the system. The technology changes, but the patterns stay the same. Greed makes people sloppy. I scrolled down through the document properties. There's an author name listed, T. Mitchell. T. Mitchell, write that down. We're going to need to find out who that is. Do you have an ally like Martin in your life? Someone who'd drop everything to help you fight for the truth when everything seems impossible? Martin, what do I do next? We dig deeper. Every digital file leaves fingerprints, Linda. Let's find out whose hands touched those records. Martin called me back the next morning with news that made my coffee go cold. I ran some searches on that T. Mitchell name from your document properties. Found something interesting. What kind of interesting? The bad kind. Thomas Mitchell, former county clerk in Cook County, Illinois. Indicted last year for deed fraud. Apparently, he was selling access to property records, helping people forge ownership documents. I sat down hard. Is he in jail? Released on bail pending trial. But here's the thing, Linda, his case got dismissed 3 months ago on a technicality. He's a free man with a very specific skill set. You think he's the one who created Claire's fake documents? I think Thomas Mitchell knows how to make government paperwork look real when it isn't. And I think someone paid him to do exactly that with your husband's marriage certificate. My mind raced. How do we prove it? We need to dig deeper into those digital fingerprints. Can you forward me those PDF files Claire sent you? I sent the files while we stayed on the phone. I could hear Martin's keyboard clicking in the background. Interesting. Very interesting. What are you seeing? The marriage certificate wasn't just created at 2:14 a.m., it was modified 17 times between March 18 and March 22. Someone kept tweaking it, trying to make it look more authentic. 17 times? Look at this. The first version had Robert's signature leaning the wrong way. They corrected it in version 3. The notary information was different in the early versions. They changed Jennifer Walsh's license number 4 times before settling on one that looked official. My stomach turned. They were perfecting their forgery. Exactly. And here's the smoking gun. The computer that created these files was registered to a business address in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville. Where Claire's expensive lawyer worked. Martin, can you find out what business? Already did. It's registered to Webb and Associates, Legal Services. Marcus Webb's law firm. The same lawyer Claire had mentioned. The one who'd supposedly explained how posthumous marriages worked. So Webb's office created the fake documents. Either that, or someone with access to their computers did. But Linda, this is bigger than just one fake marriage certificate. What do you mean? I cross-referenced Thomas Mitchell's name with some databases I still have access to. He's been busy since his Illinois case got dismissed. There are similar document anomalies in 5 other states, all involving posthumous marriage certificates. My blood ran cold. Other widows? Other widows, other estates, same pattern. Middle-of-the-night document creation, backdated certificates, fake notary information. We're looking at a systematic operation here. Digital evidence never lies, only people do. Subscribe now to learn what criminals hope you never discover about their paper trails. Martin, what do I do with this information? We take it to someone with authority. But first, we need one more piece of the puzzle. What's that? We need to prove that Thomas Mitchell and Marcus Webb know each other. If we can establish a connection between the guy who creates fake documents and the lawyer who files them, we've got them. How do we prove that? The same way we proved everything else, through the digital trail. Every phone call, every email, every shared document leaves traces. We just need to know where to look. I felt a surge of hope mixed with terror. We were getting closer to the truth, but I was also realizing how deep this conspiracy went. Martin, what if they find out we're investigating them? Then we better work fast. Ever wondered what digital fingerprints you leave behind every day? This story proves they matter more than you think. The certified letter arrived on a Thursday, delivered by a nervous-looking postal worker who made me sign 3 different forms. The envelope was thick, expensive paper with a return address that made my heart sink. Webb and Associates, Legal Services, Nashville, Tennessee. Inside was 4 pages of legal language that boiled down to a simple threat: stop digging or face the consequences. The letterhead was impressive, gold embossed, downtown Nashville address, a list of practice areas that took up half the first page. Marcus Webb, senior partner, had definitely invested in looking legitimate. But the content was pure intimidation. Dear Mrs. Linda Johnson, it began. It has come to our attention that you are making false and defamatory statements regarding the lawful marriage of our clients, Mr. Robert Johnson, deceased, and Mrs. Claire Johnson. False and defamatory. Like hospital receipts and medical records were somehow lies. Furthermore, you are allegedly harassing witnesses, contacting private businesses under false pretenses, and attempting to interfere with lawfully executed estate planning documents. I read that paragraph twice. Harassing witnesses? I'd made 1 phone call to a Las Vegas wedding chapel. Contacting businesses under false pretenses? I'd asked a hospital about my own husband's medical records. But the next paragraph made my hands shake. Our clients are prepared to seek damages for emotional distress, defamation of character, and tortious interference with contractual relations. Potential damages exceed $500,000, not including attorney fees and court costs. $500,000. More money than Robert and I had saved in 40 years of marriage. The letter continued, additionally, your actions may constitute criminal harassment under Tennessee and Kentucky state law. We have documented evidence of your attempts to suborn perjury and obtain confidential information through fraudulent means. Suborn perjury. I had to look that up. It meant convincing someone to lie under oath. Apparently, asking questions was now a crime. But the real kicker came in the final paragraph. You have 72 hours from receipt of this letter to cease all interference with our client's lawful rights and to provide written assurance that you will make no further contact with any parties related to this matter. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. 72 hours. 3 days to give up and walk away from 40 years of marriage. I called Martin immediately. They're scared, he said after I read him the letter. When lawyers start throwing around big numbers and fancy legal terms, it usually means they know their case is weak. But what if they sue me? I can't afford to fight someone with a Nashville law firm. Linda, think about it. If their case was solid, why would they need to threaten you? They'd just let the evidence speak for itself. So what do? You keep gathering evidence. But more carefully now. They're watching. Have you ever been threatened into silence when you were fighting for what's right? Sometimes pushing back is the only choice that preserves your dignity. Martin, I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But don't let it stop you from seeking the truth. I looked at that expensive letterhead again. All that gold embossing, all those impressive credentials. But underneath the fancy presentation was a simple message: shut up and disappear. Martin? Yeah? I think I'm going to need that evidence sooner rather than later. Underneath all the legal language was a simple deadline: 72 hours to withdraw all claims, or face what they called aggressive legal action. I was cleaning out Robert's desk drawer when I found his old flip phone, the one he'd refused to give up even after I bought him a smartphone. The battery was dead, but when I plugged in the charger, it came to life with 3 missed calls and 1 saved voicemail. The voicemail was from Dr. Kim's office, timestamped March 13, 2024, at 4:17 p.m. But first, there was an outgoing message. Robert's voice, weak and strained: "Doc, it's Robert Johnson. The chest pain's getting worse, and I can barely catch my breath. I think I need to come in tomorrow instead of waiting for Friday's appointment. Call me back when you get this." The timestamp showed March 13, 3:45 p.m. 2 days before his supposed wedding in Las Vegas. My hands trembled as I listened to my husband's voice, knowing it was probably one of the last messages he'd ever recorded. But more than that, it was proof, undeniable proof that Robert was in Kentucky, in medical crisis, 48 hours before Claire claimed they got married in Nevada. The return call from Dr. Kim's office came 3 hours later. "Mr. Johnson, this is Jennifer from Dr. Kim's office. The doctor wants you to go straight to the emergency room. Don't wait until tomorrow, go tonight. We're calling ahead to let them know you're coming." Robert never answered that call. By the time they left the message, he was already at Lexington General, fighting for his life. I played the messages again, then recorded them on my phone's voice recorder. Robert's voice, crackling through the static, became the most important evidence I had. But there was something else on that old phone, something that made my blood run cold. In his text messages, I found a conversation with Claire from March 10. "Claire, Dad, I really need to talk to you about the wool situation. Robert, we can discuss it when you visit next month. Claire, it can't wait. There are some legal issues with the farm deed that need immediate attention. Robert, what kind of legal issues? Claire, nothing serious, just some paperwork Mom didn't file correctly. But we need to get it sorted before tax season." The conversation ended there. Robert had never mentioned any problems with our property taxes or deed paperwork. In fact, our taxes had been filed properly every year for 4 decades. But the date bothered me. March 10 was 5 days before Robert's supposed marriage to Claire, and 5 days before his heart attack. She'd been pressuring him about legal paperwork right before he got sick. His dying words just exposed their lie. Subscribe now, because some truths can only be heard once, and you need to recognize them before they disappear forever. I saved everything: the voicemail, the text conversation, the timestamps. Then I called Martin. She was pressuring him about the deed paperwork days before he died, I told him. That's not a coincidence, Linda. She knew what she was planning. But how could she know he was going to have a heart attack? She didn't need to know that. She just needed him out of the picture long enough to file her fake marriage certificate. The heart attack was bad luck for Robert, but perfect timing for her plan. What would it feel like to hear your loved one's voice become the key evidence in your fight for justice? Tell us below. The marriage certificate listed 2 witnesses, David Martinez and Sarah Chin. According to the document, they'd both been present at the Little Chapel of Hearts in Las Vegas on March 15, 2024, to witness Robert and Claire's wedding ceremony. I found David Martinez on social media within an hour. His Facebook profile showed he was a bartender in Miami, with hundreds of photos of beach sunsets and cocktail recipes. More importantly, his location was always tagged, Miami Beach, Florida. I called the restaurant where he worked. Sunset Grill, this is David. Hi David, my name is Linda Johnson. I'm calling about a marriage certificate that lists you as a witness. A what now? A marriage certificate from Las Vegas. March 15, 2024. You supposedly witnessed a ceremony between Robert Johnson and Claire Johnson. There was a long pause. Then David started laughing. Lady, I've never been to Las Vegas in my life. And I've never witnessed anybody's wedding. I was working a double shift here in Miami that whole week. We had spring break crowds. You're sure about March 15th specifically? Absolutely. That was the Saturday of our busiest weekend. I worked from noon until 2 a.m. My manager can confirm it, and I've got Instagram photos from that night if you want proof. Would you be willing to send me those photos? Sure, but can you tell me what this is about? Someone using my name for fake paperwork? I explained the situation briefly. David's voice turned serious. That's messed up, Mrs. Johnson. I'll send you everything I have from that weekend. And if you need me to talk to police or lawyers, just let me know. Sarah Chen was even easier to track down. She worked as a nurse at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, and her LinkedIn profile showed she'd been there for 6 years. When I called the hospital, they transferred me to her unit. Sarah Chen speaking. Ms. Chen, I'm Linda Johnson. I'm calling about a document that lists you as a witness to a marriage ceremony in Las Vegas. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I've never been to Las Vegas. The document is dated March 15, 2024. Oh, that's definitely wrong. March 15th was my daughter's birthday. We had a big party here in Miami. I've got about 50 photos from that day, and my whole family can confirm I was here. Your digital footprint could save someone's life, or expose a major crime. What would your social media photos prove if someone questioned your whereabouts? Ms. Chen, would you be willing to provide those photos as evidence? Of course. This sounds like identity theft. Do you want me to file a police report? That might be helpful, yes. I'll call Miami police today. And Mrs. Johnson? I'm really sorry someone used my name to hurt you. That's not right. 2 witnesses, both with perfect alibis. Both 1,200 miles away from Las Vegas on March 15th. Both willing to testify that they'd never signed any marriage certificate or witnessed any ceremony. Someone had forged their names and personal information, but who had access to their details? And more importantly, how many other people's identities had been stolen for similar fake documents? I made a list of everything I had: hospital records proving Robert was in Kentucky, phone records proving his medical crisis, witness statements proving the ceremony never happened, and digital evidence proving the documents were created days after the supposed event. But I still needed one more piece of the puzzle: proof that Marcus Webb and Thomas Mitchell were working together. 2 witnesses, both with rock-solid alibis. Someone had stolen their identities, but who had access to their personal information? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus Webb's gold-embossed letterhead and heard that 72-hour deadline ticking away. But somewhere around 3 a.m., lying in the bed I'd shared with Robert for 40 years, I made a decision that surprised even me. Instead of backing down, I was going to fight back. At 5:30 a.m., I was dressed and driving to the Fayette County Courthouse with a folder full of evidence and a legal motion I'd spent the night researching and writing by hand. The clerk's office didn't open until 8 a.m., but I sat in the parking lot, watching the sun come up over the building where someone had tried to erase me from my own husband's life. At exactly 7:58 a.m., I walked through those doors. I need to file an emergency motion for estate freeze, I told the same clerk who'd called me a stranger 2 weeks earlier. She looked up, recognition dawning in her eyes. Mrs. Johnson, I thought we discussed that you don't have standing in this matter. That's exactly what this motion is about. I'm requesting that the court freeze all estate actions pending a fraud investigation. I slid my handwritten motion across the counter along with copies of every piece of evidence I'd gathered, hospital records, phone recordings, witness statements, and digital forensics reports from Martin. The clerk read through the first page, her eyebrows rising higher with each paragraph. "Ma'am, this is pretty serious stuff you're alleging here. Fraud usually is." She stamped my motion with the official court seal and handed me a receipt. "The judge will review this within 24 hours for emergency motions. If granted, it automatically freezes all estate actions until a hearing can be scheduled." "How long until the hearing?" "Emergency fraud allegations get priority. Probably within the week." I walked out of that courthouse feeling something I hadn't felt in months: hope. Timing beats money when truth is on your side. Subscribe now, because sometimes learning when to make your move decides everything. At 6:03 a.m., before Marcus Webb's Nashville office even opened for business, my motion was officially filed in Kentucky court. By the time Claire's expensive lawyer checked his messages, it was already done. The judge's response came faster than I'd expected. At 2:17 p.m. that same day, my phone rang. "Mrs. Johnson? This is Judge Patricia Coleman's clerk. The judge has reviewed your emergency motion and supporting evidence." My heart stopped beating. "The motion is granted. All estate actions regarding Robert Eugene Johnson are frozen pending investigation. We've scheduled an evidentiary hearing for Friday at 9 a.m. I had to sit down. "The motion is granted?" "Yes, ma'am. The judge was quite concerned about the evidence you presented. She's also ordered the Kentucky State Police to open a fraud investigation." Friday. For days to prepare for the most important hearing of my life. But for the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. I had truth on my side, and sometimes truth is enough. That afternoon, Martin called with news that made me smile for the first time since Robert's funeral. "Linda, you're not going to believe this. Marcus Webb's office tried to withdraw Claire's estate claim this morning. Too late, your freeze motion beat them by 8 hours. The judge's response was one word: granted. But I knew the real fight was just beginning. Ever had to make a crucial move before dawn? Sometimes the early bird catches more than worms, sometimes it catches justice. The woman approached me in the courthouse parking lot 3 days before the hearing. She was maybe 40, wearing a county employee badge, and she kept looking over her shoulder like she expected someone to follow her. "Mrs. Johnson? I'm Karen Walsh. I work in records processing." The name stopped me cold. "Walsh? Like Jennifer Walsh, the fake notary from Claire's marriage certificate?" "That's my sister. She's been dead for 2 years." My blood turned to ice. "Dead? Car accident in 2022. But someone's been using her notary information for fake documents. When I saw your case file, I recognized the license number immediately." She pulled out a manila folder and glanced around the parking lot again. "Mrs. Johnson, what happened to you isn't unique. Thomas Mitchell has been selling access to dead people's records. 20 marriages to ghosts in the last year, all processed through different state systems. 20 marriages. All to people who've been dead for months. All representing stolen inheritances, just like yours." She handed me the folder. "These are copies of the other cases I could find. Different names, different states, same pattern. Middle of the night document creation, dead notaries, forged signatures." I opened the folder with shaking hands. 20 different marriage certificates, all with similar metadata signatures, all created by the same person, T. Mitchell. "How do you know all this?" "Because part of my job is cross-referencing death certificates with new marriage licenses. It's supposed to prevent exactly this kind of fraud. But if someone has admin access to our system, they can override the automatic flags." "Admin access?" "County clerks, deputy clerks, certain attorneys who file documents electronically. People like Marcus Webb." The pieces were falling into place. "So Webb has access to your system?" "He's been filing electronic documents in Kentucky for 8 years. His law firm has premium access. they can upload directly without manual review. Karen looked over her shoulder again, then stepped closer. Mrs. Johnson, there's something else. I pulled the login records for the night your fake marriage certificate was uploaded to our database. And? It wasn't uploaded from Nashville. The IP address traces back to a coffee shop in Lexington, Kentucky. Someone local accessed Webb's account and uploaded those documents. My heart started racing. Someone in Lexington? Someone who knew Webb's login credentials and had copies of the fake Nevada papers. Someone with inside knowledge of your husband's death date and estate details. I thought about Claire's text messages to Robert, her pressure about legal paperwork, her casual attitude at the funeral. Mrs. Johnson, I could lose my job for telling you this, but I can't stand by and watch people steal from widows. How many other widows never got justice because they didn't know who to ask for help? Comment below if corruption in your area needs exposing. Why are you helping me? Because my sister Jennifer was a good person. She spent her life helping people with their legal paperwork. Having her name used to steal from grieving widows would have broken her heart. Karen handed me a business card. If you need me to testify at your hearing, call this number. It's my personal cell. As she walked away, I opened that folder and saw the scope of what we were fighting. 20 stolen lives. 20 erased widows. 20 families destroyed by the same corrupt system that had tried to erase me. But Friday's hearing wasn't just about getting my life back anymore. It was about stopping them from doing this to anyone else. She whispered across the parking lot, Mitchell sold access to dead people's records. 20 marriages to ghosts, all rubber-stamped for profit. Marcus Webb's counterfiling arrived Thursday night, less than 12 hours before our hearing. Claire had clearly spent serious money on legal help. The document was 37 pages of expertly crafted lies. But desperation showed through the professional formatting. Gone was the story about a beautiful Las Vegas ceremony. Now Claire claimed it had been a private family commitment ceremony held at Robert's bedside in the hospital. Wait, the same hospital where medical records proved Robert was unconscious and sedated? The new story got more creative from there. According to Webb's filing, Robert had signed marriage documents weeks earlier, but the ceremonial exchange of vows happened during a brief moment of lucidity on March 15. Page 12 introduced another revision. The Vegas documents were merely backup filings to ensure the marriage was legally recognized across state lines. By page 20, Webb was claiming the ceremony had actually been symbolic in nature, with the legal marriage occurring through prior written consent and power of attorney documentation. I read through the entire filing twice, making notes in the margins. 3 different versions of the same, true, story, each one contradicting the last. Martin called while I was highlighting the inconsistencies. Have you seen Webb's counterfiling yet? Just finished reading it. He's changed the story completely. That's what guilty people do when they realize their first lie won't hold up. They keep changing details, hoping something will stick. But what if the judge believes him? Linda, look at what he's claiming now. A bedside ceremony with an unconscious patient. Backup documents filed in a state where neither party was present. Legal marriages happening through symbolic vows. None of that makes sense. Exactly. When someone's story keeps changing, judges notice. Especially when the physical evidence contradicts every version. I spread Webb's filing across my kitchen table next to all my evidence. Hospital records, phone recordings, witness statements, digital forensics reports. Everything stayed consistent, while Claire's story morphed like a lie trying to escape the truth. When someone's story keeps changing, which version do you believe? The first one usually contains the most truth. But Webb's filing contained one paragraph that made my stomach drop. Plaintiff Linda Johnson's harassment campaign has caused severe emotional distress to our client Claire Johnson, who is grieving the loss of her father while simultaneously fighting to preserve his final wishes. Mrs. Linda Johnson's refusal to accept the lawful marriage demonstrates a pattern of denial and vindictive behavior inconsistent with the loving relationship she claims to have shared with the deceased. Vindictive behavior. They were trying to paint me as a bitter, jealous woman who couldn't accept Robert's final wishes. Martin, what if they convince the judge that I'm just a bitter widow who can't let go? Then you let the evidence speak for itself. Hospital records don't lie. Phone recordings don't have emotional agendas. Digital forensics don't care about hurt feelings. But emotions matter in court. Sure they do. And your emotions are completely justified. You're not fighting out of bitterness, you're fighting for truth. There's a difference. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. I dressed in my best blue suit, the one Robert had always said made me look professional, and drove to the courthouse with a briefcase full of evidence and 40 years of righteous anger. Claire's lawyer could rewrite history all he wanted, but he couldn't rewrite timestamps, medical records, and witness statements. 3 different versions of the same, true story. The judge would have to decide which lie to believe, or whether to believe the evidence instead. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with fluorescent lights that hummed like the ones in the probate office where this nightmare had started. Judge Patricia Coleman sat behind a mahogany desk that had probably seen 40 years of family disputes, property battles, and broken promises. Claire sat at the defendant's table wearing a black dress that screamed, grieving daughter. Her Nashville lawyer, Marcus Webb, looked exactly like his letterhead suggested: expensive suit, perfect haircut, and the kind of confidence that comes from winning cases through intimidation rather than truth. I sat alone at the plaintiff's table. Martin had offered to come, but I'd decided this was something I needed to do myself. 40 years of marriage deserved at least that much dignity. We're here today, Judge Coleman began, to determine the validity of a posthumous marriage certificate and address allegations of document fraud. Mrs. Johnson, you filed the motion. Please present your evidence. I stood on shaking legs and walked to the evidence table. My voice came out steadier than I'd expected. Your Honor, I have hospital records proving my husband was in medical crisis on March 15, 2024, when he supposedly got married in Las Vegas. I have phone recordings of his final conversations with his cardiologist. I have statements from the alleged ceremony witnesses confirming they were in Florida that day, not Nevada. And I have digital forensics evidence showing the marriage documents were created 3 days after the supposed ceremony. Judge Coleman accepted each piece of evidence with a simple nod. No drama, no gasps from the gallery. Just methodical examination of facts. Marcus Webb stood to present his case. His voice was smooth, practiced, designed to project authority. Your Honor, my client Claire Johnson is the victim of a harassment campaign by a woman who refuses to accept her stepfather's final wishes. The marriage between Robert Johnson and Claire Johnson was a private family matter, conducted according to Nevada state law with proper documentation. Mr. Webb, Judge Coleman interrupted, I've reviewed your filings. You've presented 3 different versions of how this marriage supposedly occurred. Which version am I supposed to believe? Webb's confidence flickered for just a moment. Your Honor, the specifics of the ceremony are less important than the legal validity of the documentation. The documentation that shows creation dates 3 days after the supposed ceremony? The documentation that lists witnesses who have sworn statements they were never present? Truth doesn't need volume when it has proof. Subscribe now to see how quiet victories can change everything. Judge Coleman opened my evidence folder and read without speaking. Her pen moved 3 times during her review: signature, stamp, order. Claire's attorney never looked up from his legal pad. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Finally, Judge Coleman spoke. Motion granted. The marriage certificate dated March 15, 2024, between Robert Eugene Johnson and Claire Marie Johnson is declared fraudulent and void. The estate of Robert Eugene Johnson is restored to his lawful widow, Linda Johnson. Then the gavel fell once. A small wooden sound that restored 40 years of marriage. Furthermore, Judge Coleman continued, I'm referring this matter to the Kentucky State Police Fraud Division and the FBI for investigation into potential interstate document fraud. Claire's face went white. Marcus Webb gathered his papers with the efficiency of someone who just lost a case he thought was unwinnable. I sat in my chair, feeling something I hadn't felt since Robert's funeral: peace. Not joy, not triumph. Just the quiet satisfaction of truth finally being heard. The judge read without speaking. His pen moved 3 times. Signature, stamp, order. Claire's attorney never looked up from his notes. What would you have felt sitting in that courtroom chair when 40 years of love was finally validated again? The phone call came 2 weeks later while I was finally sorting through Robert's clothes, deciding what to keep and what to donate. The number on my caller ID showed Kentucky State Police. Mrs. Johnson? This is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Fraud Division. I wanted to update you on the investigation into your case. I sat down on our old bed, holding one of Robert's flannel shirts. What kind of update? We've made arrests. 3 people involved in the document fraud scheme, including Thomas Mitchell and Marcus Webb. My heart started beating faster. Marcus Webb was arrested? Yesterday. Turns out he wasn't just filing fake documents, he was coordinating the entire operation. We found evidence of at least 30 fraudulent marriages across 6 states. 30. Even more than Karen had discovered. What about Claire? Claire Johnson was arrested this morning at her apartment in Louisville. She's being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and attempted grand theft. I closed my eyes and tried to feel satisfaction, but mostly I just felt tired. Detective Martinez, what happens now? Well, the federal prosecutor is very interested in this case. Wire fraud across state lines carries serious penalties. We're looking at potential prison sentences of 5 to 10 years for the main conspirators. 5 to 10 years. Claire would be in her 40s when she got out. Mrs. Johnson? Are you still there? I'm here. I was just thinking about whether Robert would want this. Ma'am, what they did was steal from you and dozens of other families. Some of these victims lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in inheritance money. That afternoon, Marcus Webb's Nashville office called. Not Webb himself. He was apparently in federal custody, but his partner, asking if I would consider not testifying in exchange for a financial settlement. I hung up without answering. But Claire called that evening from jail, crying. Linda, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get this far. What did you mean for it to get to, Claire? I needed money. The lawyer said it would be easy, that nobody would ever find out. You tried to erase 40 years of my marriage for money? I didn't think you'd fight it. I thought you'd just accept it and move on. Accept it. Like losing my identity was something I should quietly endure. Claire, your father loved you. If you'd needed help, you could have just asked. He loved you more. Her voice was small, broken. He always loved you more. For the first time since this started, I felt something like pity for her. But pity doesn't undo fraud. I have to testify, Claire. Not just for me, but for all the other families they hurt. I know. She was crying harder now. Linda, for what it's worth, Dad really did love you. Even I could see that. The line went quiet except for her tears. Claire. Yeah? When you get out, if you ever want to visit his grave, you're welcome to. He was your father first. She sobbed once more, then hung up. Justice or mercy, which choice would you make when victory finally belongs to you? The next morning, I called Detective Martinez and told her I would testify in all the related cases. 30 families deserve their justice, even if it meant reliving this nightmare in multiple courtrooms. Mrs. Johnson, she said, you should know that Claire's lawyer called it an unfortunate misunderstanding. The FBI called it wire fraud across state lines. Some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight costs everything you have left. That afternoon, I walked to my mailbox and found a thick envelope from the Fayette County Clerk's office. Inside was a new property deed, freshly printed, with my name in clear black letters, Linda Johnson, surviving spouse, sole owner. The farm deed was back in my name. But the real victory was something smaller, Robert's wedding ring, no longer locked away as evidence, just love made tangible again. The mailbox read, Linda Johnson, again. Such a simple thing, your name on your own mailbox, until someone tries to erase it from existence. 6 months had passed since Judge Coleman's gavel fell and restored my 40 years of marriage with one quiet bang. The trials were over, the appeals exhausted, and the criminal sentenced. Thomas Mitchell got 8 years federal prison. Marcus Webb got 6 years and disbarment. Claire got 4 years and a lifetime of knowing she'd tried to steal her father's love. But today, none of that mattered. Today was just Tuesday morning on a Kentucky farm where the corn was coming up green and the coffee was still too strong, just like Robert always made it. I walked through our house, my house now, legally and completely, touching things that had almost belonged to strangers. The kitchen table where we'd shared 40 years of breakfast conversations. The bedroom where Robert had died peacefully in his sleep, never knowing someone would try to claim his death was a wedding day. The phone rang around 10 o'clock. It was Karen Walsh, the courthouse clerk who'd risked her job to help me find the truth. Mrs. Johnson? I thought you'd want to know, we caught another one. Same pattern, different family. But this time we spotted it immediately because of your case. Another fake marriage? A widow in Ohio. Someone tried to file posthumous marriage papers for her husband. But our new verification system flagged it within hours instead of weeks. The verification system you designed? The one we designed together. Every document now gets cross-checked against death certificates, medical records, and location data. What happened to you can't happen again, at least not in Kentucky. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and thought about that. One small victory growing into something larger. One widow's fight becoming protection for other families. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. A young woman stood on my porch, maybe 30 years old, holding a baby who looked exactly like Robert had in his baby pictures. Mrs. Johnson? I'm Amy, Claire's sister. I hope it's okay that I came by. I'd forgotten Claire had a younger sister, one who'd stayed out of the legal mess entirely. Of course it's okay. Come in. She settled the baby on her hip and looked around the living room with familiar eyes, Robert's eyes in a stranger's face. I wanted to apologize for what Claire did. And I wanted you to meet your step-granddaughter. Step-granddaughter. A relationship that had almost been stolen along with everything else. What's her name? Rebecca. After Dad's mother. I looked at that baby girl and saw Robert's stubborn chin, his kind eyes, his way of studying the world like it held secrets worth discovering. Would you like some coffee? I make it strong. Dad always said you made the best coffee in 3 counties. We sat at that old kitchen table, talking about Robert's stories and the baby's first words and how family doesn't always mean blood, but it always means showing up when someone needs you. Open sky, cool air, my name finally written in a hand that won't be erased. That evening, I walked to Robert's grave and told him about his granddaughter, about the verification system that would protect other widows, about how fighting for truth sometimes creates more truth than you expected. The headstone read, Robert Eugene Johnson, beloved husband, in letters carved deep enough to last forever. No one would ever change that again. If Linda's courage to fight for what's right inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of ordinary people choosing extraordinary strength in the face of impossible odds. Your identity is worth fighting for, every single time you have to defend it.